I'm returning to my days of heart to heart.
Well, if you got a dollar, well, just lousy down. Know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine.
Hi, this is Patrick with Trusty Mercantile. Welcome to my channel. Wanted to do a quick video showcasing some of the items that I picked up at a recent estate sale. The estate sale was, I'll start with, it was very well run. It was, you had to have an appointment to go in and see it. I was the only person in the home while I was looking. But it was a unique situation in the sense that the person that was running the estate sale, who is somebody I happen to have worked with before, originally had been told that they would have a couple of months in order to clear out the contents of this and the entire home, every bedroom, everything. It was whatever the family situation was. This was a true estate sale. Everything was being gotten rid of. Originally, it was supposed to have a couple of months. It turns out they only had a couple of weeks. So when I found out about it, basically they were at the point of things needed to be cleared out because if they were not taken out by that weekend, they were literally going to be thrown away. They called the 1-800-GOT-JUNK people and they were going to come haul everything away. And so it was pennies to the dollar of what they were originally asking for. And so I ended up picking up some things. I will admit, I ended up picking up a lot of things I probably would not normally, I definitely would not have normally picked up. No necessarily things I'm sorry I picked up, but I suddenly had a lot of inventory that I did not have room for that I now have to deal with. So I've been slowly, working on those, doing some videos, posting them onto Etsy, slowly, getting things sold. And what I found is I still had some items that were going to be posted to go up onto Etsy, so I decided to do this as a kind of a mini haul video of some of the better items that I had found that I thought might be more interesting to talk about and showcase in a haul video. And one of them being this. So this is a massive plant, I'm going to say vase because it's very narrow. It's very, very tall. But you can see it's very narrow, so I really don't see that you would be much of a planter. So I think it's either a purely decorative piece or possibly designed for a vase. It is fully glazed on the inside, so it could be done as either a vase or a planter. But it is from, of course I'm holding it backwards, it is from the Blue Mountain Pottery, made in Canada. Now, I've never carried Blue Mountain Pottery before. I've heard of it. So for future reference, there's a tag right on the side, which is kind of nice. That's always helpful. That actually says specifically what it is. Although it was also marked on the bottom, BMP Canada. So I probably would have figured it out even without the sticker. It is, I haven't done the research on all of these pieces yet. I haven't specifically done the research on this one. Based on the glaze, it's got the two-tone brown glaze, and based on a lot of the era of a lot of the other items in the home, probably 70s to 80s, but again, I'm not particularly familiar with the Blue Mountain Pottery. Who knows, maybe it was made last week. But this is definitely something that I was going to be selling in my booth, local booth, because it is fairly large, and I really don't want to ship it. I ship glass all the time, so I mean, it's not like I'm scared to ship, but it's very large and there are many protruding points that are right now in perfect condition and I don't want to screw that up. So I'm going to start trying to sell this in the booth so that way I'm not dealing with shipping. If it doesn't work well in the booth, I will then move it onto Etsy because I do know that this is a name that is well known. Probably could get more money on Etsy, but then I'm also, again, dealing with the hassle and possible damage shipping it. So this one will start out in the booth. So the next item was a fun ad, almost from a personal side, because if you followed some of my channel before, I did a road trip to Kentucky where I hooked up with a couple of different resellers, including Fatbird Finds. And Fatbird Finds is just a great channel. If you don't subscribe to them, you absolutely should do that. And they put out some great content. They do live chats every week. They're just a lot of fun to hang out with. And one of the connections that I made when I went down there was I met one of Fatbird Finds, Laura, her mother owns Layman's Antiques in Paducah, Kentucky. Lamon''s, Layman's Antiques. I fell in love with that store, and we were visiting a bunch of different, places and thrifting and everything. And she's not a thrift store; she's a traditional antique store. I bought a couple things from there, and one of the items that they had on display was this elaborate collection of lobsterware. And I will admit, off the top of my head, I can't remember. There is a story behind it, that it's a specific artist and they picked this up from a specific collection. But it was something that they decided to build into a much bigger display. And so they were picking up pieces all over the place. And they actually picked up a piece from me because I actually ended up having a little lobster creamer. It was like a little pearlized creamer that had a lobster as the handle. So now when I just find lobster, I think of Fatbird Finds, and it always makes me smile because they're the nicest ladies, Laura and Mary Beth. And when I was at this estate sale, this crossed my eyes. And I just had to have it. So this does not meet this is not part of the collection that they had. You can go back and look at the videos that they've done at Layman's and things like that. I mean, they talk about it. I want to say the one that they had was a California artist or something. I should have looked it up. But anyway, this is actually an older piece made in Germany. So it's got the German incised mark 7605. I haven't looked it up yet. But it's basically, I'm going to assume, a trinket box because it's a bisque glaze, so it does not have the shine to it. So it's a matte finish. So it's the bisque glaze on the outside and the inside, which means you couldn't put any liquid in here because it would absorb into the porcelain. So it's not like a butter dish. It's not anything. I don't think this has anything to do with any serving pieces, but it would look great with that collection. I do believe it is an older piece just based on the mark. Germany, possibly, definitely before World War II, possibly before World War I. So I need to do a little bit of digging on this one. But it's in great condition other than there's a little bit of paint loss. There's no chips or anything. There's just a little bit of paint loss along the edges, which I just think adds to its uniqueness. So this is something that will be going on to Etsy because I think this is a little bit specialized, and this is one of those types of items. I'm worried enough about putting the fragile glass in the booth. Something like this that actually is designed to be lifted up and put back together. I just see this getting chipped or damaged in the booth. So I'm learning what can go into the booth versus really what needs to stay in a controlled environment being sold online. So this is my ode to Fatbird Finds, little lobster dish from Germany, and hopefully I'll find out a little bit more detail on this, but this one is heading to Etsy. This next item was also one that had been part of the preview photos highlighting some of the highlights of the estate sale, but I will admit I wasn't overly surprised that it was still there when I showed up at the end of the sale, but I knew I had to have it. I'm returning to my days of heart to heart. Anyone recognize this? People of a certain age will absolutely know what this is, even before I turn it around and show the cord coming out of the back, because it is the highest of high quality desk phones. All right, Jonathan Hart definitely had something like this in his office, if not his living room. It is extremely heavy. I will say that. And so this is another item that I really did pick up specifically to go into my booth. I think it's going to look really cool. I think it's a conversation piece, probably from the 80s, I would guess. It's a push button phone, not rotary. It's got the retractable cord, so the cord doesn't get in the way. I mean, that in and of itself is pretty cool. It does not have like the push buttons, so it's not like a multi-channel phone, like where you'd have one in the office and one out in the secretary's desk or whatever. It is what it is. Like, this was probably used in their home. It's at one time would have been a pretty high-end piece. It is marked on the bottom, but it's marked on the bottom from the fact that it was a telephone, Because back in the day, this predates me, but I remember just conversations. I think you had to like rent your phone, or you had to pay you had to pay something to the phone company, and so this does have a phone a phone thing on here from Western Electric. Has the serial number, complies with PT68 FCC rules. I don't think any of these numbers are dates. 29 IDA I-50. I can't imagine this from 1950. And then there's 78071. Maybe it's 1978, 1980. I don't know. So I'm not sure, specifically what those numbers would necessarily. If I really wanted to, I might be able to trace down the serial number. I don't think it matters. It's from the 80s, maybe 70s, but it's probably from the 80s. Just because this just seems to be one of those stately desk items that you would have. So it's got the little brass insert. It's in really cool shape. Actually, I don't know. Maybe this will tell you too. Pull the other end of the cord. Okay, so the cord is wired. It doesn't have the little snappy thing to go into the wall. So I'm sure that probably tells you something on the age as well. There's a green wire, a yellow wire, and then a red and is that black or blue? Black, it looks like. So 4 wires. I'm sure an electrician would be able to tell you what that for. And that probably does help date it as well. But so I think it just predates those universal jacks, which would be, if you have a landline now, is what you'd be using. So anyway, this was just a cool find, very fun. Because of its weight, probably not something I'm going to end up listing on Etsy, but I do need to research it, see if there's if there's a particular value. But this would cost quite a bit to ship. But if anybody's interested, hey, we can work something out. Just be aware this probably is, I'd say 5, 6, 7 pounds. This is an old school phone. So the next item I picked up was actually something that had been included in the photographs when they first started promoting the estate sale. And initially I was contacted asking if I wanted to participate or attend. And because I'm a reseller, some people go the very first day. I knew the woman who was running the estate sale. She tends to start selling at not really Etsy or eBay prices, but close to those. She will look up to figure out what things are worth, and it is her job to get the most money possible to the people who've brought her in to sell for the estate sale. So I very rarely go to her sales the very first day because although yes, you get the best picks, you're also paying the premium price. So unless it's something that I want for my permanent collection, which I will do all the time, it's not. I tend to wait until things get marked down. I had no idea things were going to be marked down as much as they were, but it's one of those cases that these were photographed in the initial release, and I thought for sure these were going to be gone because the price she was asking was reasonable, but it seemed a little high for what I wanted to pay to be able to resell them. Now, when I got there, I discovered probably the reason that they were left behind. You can see that they have this gold tone to them. And I've been doing some research on it, and this is a case where I'm hoping that people that see this video, the hive mind, might help me figure this one out. You can see that there is a very dark discoloration around the neck. When I did the research on these, I researched, there is a mark down at the bottom, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, that basically when I researched it, gives the copyright information, it gives a maker's number. It's Wiedlich Company, WB Manufacturing, which is Wiedlich Brothers. And did some searching for this specific style and really did not find this one very often. There's a much more common one that was like they were like a longer set of either pheasants or peacocks. I'm not 100% sure. I think this is a peacock, but I don't know if peacock's legs are that long. So regardless, to me, it looked like a peacock and a peahen, but whatever. I think this is too big of a plume to be a pheasant. But a lot of the ones they do are long, short legs, and then kind of wider. So these are very tall and very narrow. I did find one set of these that had sold on First Dibs, which is really not a site you typically go to for comps because it is a very high-end clientele. Nothing wrong with it. It just tends to get premium prices. And the premium pricing for these were $1,500. So, trying to read the description on that one, it said that they were silver plate. So to me, this is not silver plate. That this is like a brass or a gold overlay, but that black is probably silver. So I did a little test on the bottom. I did the little section of the feet, and you can kind of see it. All around the bottom, there are all these really dark black areas. So for this section right here, I decided to try and do I took Barkeeper's Friend to see if I could polish it, and it polished the black off very, very nicely, but it also took off some of this golden colored wash. Now, what I find interesting is if you like feel this with your fingernail, you can feel there is a difference between this what is now white metal versus this gold wash. But if you feel up in the neck, if I were just to close my eyes and feel along it, I would not feel where the discoloration is. So I don't know if this is, like I've heard, I've watched West Wing and they talk about vermeil. I don't know if this is a vermeil wash, if this is a brass coating and this is just a white metal underneath, but then I don't know why it turned black and was able to, polish it off. The First Dibs sold it for $1,500 saying they were silver plated, but they didn't even know what the WB manufacturing stood for. So I had to find that through another post. So in some cases, they were selling it for a lot of money, but they just might have been selling them on their aesthetic value because these things are freaking gorgeous. So I'm not figured out how to post these. I'm not listing these yet. If it turns out they're $1,500, I need to go back and give that woman more money. But for right now, I need to figure these out. So I've reached out to a couple of people. I never carry silver. So it's one of these cases where it's like, I don't even own silver to the point that I would know necessarily, is this true silver tarnish? Is that something else? So if anybody has any information on these, I would greatly appreciate it. Because I do want to try and sell them for a reasonable price. And particularly if they're super valuable, I would feel guilty if I walked away with these for what I paid. Because clearly, you can't all know everything. But if it turns out that these are particularly valuable, I want to, pass them on, but then give credit where credit is due and get that family a little extra money. But anyway, I'm hoping, if it turns out that they're super valuable, I'll have to really make some decisions. If not, and I just really hesitate to do this, I really would like to just polish the whole thing down so it gets down to that white metal. Because right now these are not attractive. They're amazing in their form, but they're just not attractive because they just have these weird bald spots, all over the place. That does not make them attractive in any environment. So, I would say these are probably from the 50s. Maybe they're even older, but I would say mid-century modern looking. Wish me luck. And if you got any insight, I would definitely take it. There was a lot of glass that was included in this estate sale, and by the time I got there, actually a lot of the glass had sold. One of the pieces that was left behind was somewhat surprising. It was still left behind. Is this? See if I can back up enough to get the whole thing in one shot. It is. Google Lens is an amazing thing. If you do not know how to use Google Lens for research, it's amazing for things that have a very distinctive silhouette. So assuming all things on the internet you find are true, the common thought behind this is it's an Empoli ring stem glass. And it's whether it's a glass bowl, a glass vase, it's admittedly a somewhat of an odd shape. You would not be drinking from this. One, it's absolutely massive. Two, these ribs in it, you'd drown because as you pour it out, it would just come flooding over your face. It's a little shallow to be a vase because, it I mean, it's basically the depth of my hand. So you could do maybe some low flowers or like tulips or something that would drape over it. But anything super, super tall, they would not have a lot of stem height to sit in here. But it's also clear, so you really wouldn't make it a planter. So it may just be nothing more. And I built my entire personal collection on nothing more than shelf sitters, because it is beautiful. And it was one of the higher priced items at the sale, but based on what these sell for, it was actually very well priced. So I was very happy it was still available. So when I picked this up, there've been a couple of these that have been sold online that appear to be running in the $75 to $100 range. I just did some quick searching. I need to figure out what this color does, because you can even seeing here on the screen, the top color is a lot more of a teal color. There's a little bit more blue, but when you get into the stem, it's very, very like almost just like an emerald green, and then the base goes back into that aqua. So I mean, it was made this way, but this particular color combination I did not find. And sometimes different color combinations can go significantly higher or significantly lower. If this ended up being a super common version, this might be cheaper than the ones that I found. So I still need to do a little bit of research on this, but it's a gorgeous piece. This again will be something that at least for now will start in my booth because of the fragility of the stem. Again, I ship glass all the time. Knock wood, I haven't had all that many claims, but I would say at least half of the claims that I've had have been stemmed pieces. Nothing this elaborate, but it's when you start jostling a box around and it's just holding by something very thin, it's a risk. And I've learned and I've gotten better, but this is a valuable piece. I don't know if it's particularly common. I didn't find a lot of examples of it. I'm going to start it local so that it doesn't have to get shipped. But, if you're interested, we want to work something out, I'm sure I can. That's what insurance is made for. But this was another absolutely awesome piece from the estate sale. I was happy and thrilled to pick it up. If you're new to my channel, something you would not be aware of, I've really only been doing reselling for a little over a year. I started my very first vintage reselling was done on Etsy, started in October of 2018. No, 2019. What am I thinking? Time just flies. So October of 2020 was my 1 year anniversary. So we're just a little bit past that. And over time, I really trying to build up, a lot of what I started with, well, to be honest, a lot of what I started with was theater pieces from props and from set dressing for things that I was doing in local community theater. I just had accumulated so many props and set dressing pieces, I needed to get rid of them. So I started doing that. Then I also started expanding it, and I was buying what I liked. And I still don't think that that's a bad idea, but I've discovered that not everyone agrees with what I like. So I've drifted into different things. Mid-century modern is not something I'm particularly knowledgeable in. I can appreciate it. I can recognize its aesthetic, and I obviously understand why it's popular. But it's not something that I know a lot about, and it's not something I have any real history or knowledge in. But sometimes when you walk past something, you say, okay, you know what? I think this falls into the mid-century modern, and even though I don't specialize in that, I need to pick these up. So this is a pair of candelabra, each of them holding 4. I would say based on these curves, what I originally immediately thought of is that this is mid-century modern. With these curves, it actually seems like it could be going earlier, getting into the nouveau, so going into like the early, teens. But it's brass, so I would anticipate we push a little bit past that. It could be going into the 70s, and because there was a lot of decor from the home that moved into the 70s, but the quality of this is actually really, really good. Not that things from the 70s were not good, but there was some good quality put into these. You can see it's a weighted bottom. It has been completely closed and sealed, so you don't see any of the workmanship that put this together. You don't see any of the screws that are holding on the individual arms. It's just exceptionally well done. What I find odd about it is it's so well done, not marked. I would have thought that if this was something from the 50s or 60s, that this would be something that there would have been a craftsman that would want to get credit for this. And unfortunately, there's not. So this is just one of those cases where it's an era that I'm not particularly familiar with. I'm picking them up because I think they were beautiful. And I think that they do have enough versatility. They can go in a variety of decor. If you put some bright colors in there, you can even get super modern, even though it's brass. And brass is also picking up more popularity. I wouldn't necessarily fall this into like the boho, the 70s boho look that's getting popular and why a lot of brass is coming in. This just has a much more refined look to it. But they're gorgeous. Put them up on a mantle, put them on your piano, facing each other. There's just some great silhouettes here that I wish I could find more about these. Google Lens did not help me on this one. So these are just going to be sold for their aesthetic value. But these are going to go on Etsy. I do think that this would be the type of product that an Etsy customer would appreciate. And so these will end up being listed there. So the last item I picked up actually took me pretty much the farthest outside my comfort zone of anything that I ended up getting through the estate sale. And I picked it up primarily because I'm not big into projects. I'm not particularly handy. I have no interest in, some people are super gifted and skilled at upcycling and turning things from one purpose into another purpose. I don't have that skill set. Again, I can appreciate it, but it's not something I focus on. So I tend to find pieces that already have inherent aesthetics that are attractive without basically having to do anything to them. So I want, good condition, all that kind of stuff, because I'm not going to try and repair them. One of the things that was happening as the holiday season was approaching, and as we were in the middle of the holiday season during this estate sale, that some of the other vendors within the Rustic Fox were kind of upcycling vintage pieces with contemporary Christmas decor. And it's not my place to judge. I tended not to carry any of that. I really appreciated those that were taking vintage pieces and then maybe assembling a little vignette with all vintage pieces. Thought that was super cool, and it was staying with the honor of the idea of vintage. Sometimes new material was being mixed in with the vintage, and that becomes dicey because then someday 10 years from now someone will look at that and wonder, well, is all of this fake? It's difficult. But one of the simpler things that were being done, knowing that I have no ability to do any of it, so I'm certainly not casting stones, but is they were taking doorknobs and putting little bottle brushes in them. And so one of the things that I found in this estate sale was a box of doorknobs. Now, it does appear it's not a complete set. I do have pairs, so what I have to decide is do I want to sell these as pairs, or do I want to do the reason I was picking these up is taking these doorknobs that have a hole built right into them that would make they sit perfectly fine, it's perfectly flat to hold a little, and it could be a vintage bottle brush, but a little Christmas tree. And just have it as a little individual vignette, or multiples of them together. So like this one, I happen to have what appears to be a pair, but I don't have the rod that would connect them within the system. So I don't know if those are standard sizes. So I had these, which I think they're porcelain. I'm gonna guess are porcelain. I have these Eastlake design ones. So I've got a pair of those. This one does have at least part of the stem, but like this doesn't fit into this one. So I don't know if these were ever designed to go together, but they definitely have the same head. Oh, one's smaller than the other. All right, so that's not a pair. Then I had this. These two are a pair. So I had the crystal. And these they have a flat head on them. So you could kind of see there's a little profile there, but it's flat enough that as long as the tree stays standing, it should stay sturdy. So there was a pair of those, and then this was a pair, another set of crystal. These, if I don't know if you can tell, so I can kind of show it there. You can see there's like a divot in here. Now it's perfectly clean, so I don't think anything was ever in that divot. I think it literally is just like a little place for you to put your thumb as you were turning it. But as a result, it meant that this sits perfectly flat on any surface. So again, if I wanted to do the little tiny bottle brush, but I do have a pair of those. And then these ended up being like oddball ones that I would have kept sets together if I could have found them, but these ended up being alone. So this one, again, flat surface, crystal, and then this one has a brass, like the brass, it doesn't have a slot on there, so it's really just the finished piece of it, but it looks like that would come all the way out. So that one, I don't know how well that would work. You'd have to take out this entire piece in order to put the bottle brush into the glass. Even the people that were doing these with vintage pieces, they weren't selling for a lot of money. So I picked them up in the middle of the season, and I just didn't get a chance to go through all the boxes that I got from the estate sale and actually try and turn these into anything. So maybe this is something that'll become a project for next year, or it's entirely probable I'll find somebody that just wants to buy the doorknobs and I'll just sell them and move on. Because I really don't need another set of project pieces. So, but anyway, it was kind of fun. I appreciate this industrial look. I appreciate the fact, even if you do not want these as doorknobs in your home, the idea that you could repurpose these into something, people have turned these into, curtain tiebacks. There's all kinds of things you can do with these. I was able to pick them up fairly inexpensively there, and I have an idea of what I will use them for. Just a question of whether that idea will ever work. So those are the highlights of the estate sale. I really haven't done estate sales a lot. Even pre-COVID, it's just something that I don't really have the opportunity to do them. And depending on how they're structured, sometimes I can get a good deal. It's hard. I happen to have this friend who runs estate sales, so she keeps an eye out on things for me, and I've been able to work with her on a couple individual cases. But again, I tend to get in toward the end when I'm buying the leftovers. Now, everything I just showed you were leftovers, so that's really something you should just keep in mind for yourself. If you're not really sure about estate sales, first, particularly during the time of COVID, just ask, what are your conditions, or how are you structuring them? I am not kidding when I say I was the only person in the house. At one point, I was literally the only person in the house because even the reseller and the family member were outside the yard or something. So it is possible to do it in a very controlled environment that you're not risking. I was in my mask all the time anyway, but there are concerns for some people that you could end up being in a really tight environment. You're surrounded by strangers, that kind of thing. Some estate sales are taking it very seriously because this is their business. Literally, it is their business to do this. And if people are scared to go, they're going to go out of business. So give the estate sales that are happening, give them the benefit of the doubt. If you see something you're interested in, just reach out to them. They will be more than happy to share what they're doing. And if they say they're not doing anything, maybe they're going to lose the business, but at least give them a shot, because it is, even in the time of COVID, a very controlled way to do it. And even at the end of an estate sale, you can still pick up some items, because particularly if it's like this one, the house wasn't massive, but the entire house's contents, attic, bedrooms, and basement, and garage were all being sold. Even once I was done, I know this for a fact, even once I was done, I had another reseller who was local. She went in and she bought a carload of stuff after me. So even though I picked up all kinds of great stuff, she found even more. So everyone's going to be interested in something different. Keep an eye out for things like that. It's a fun way to spend some time, just looking, in some cases, memory lane, it's something like, oh, I remember that. In other cases, I learned a lot. With the person that's running it, like, she had done a lot of research and prepping for it. One of the family members was there, and so I got some individual stories, which was kind of nice. That they were very distant, I will say, because I picked up christening certificates and things that I wouldn't imagine a family would want to go, but they were framed and sitting out, and had a price tag on them. So some families, they have different priorities. That's it for this video. This estate sale video. Again, most of these items will end up going onto Etsy. A couple of the larger items, though, I said are going to be going into my mall, the space in my in the Vintage Mall. If there's anything that you see, and this goes for all of my videos, and it also goes for most of the resellers if you watch other videos, if you ever see a haul video and you see something you like, drop us a note. Drop me a note if you're interested in anything. Yeah, I'm hesitant to ship some of these items, but if I know you really want it, we can work out something. Hey, if you're willing to pay for the shipping, I can double box stuff and it'll make it. And again, that's what insurance is made for. So if you see anything, drop me a note. Otherwise, watch my eBay or Etsy store for some of the items. And if you're ever in the North Aurora area, stop by the Rustic Fox. So thanks again for visiting with Trusty Huckster Mercantile. If you've gotten this far and you're not a subscriber, would really appreciate you subscribing to my channel, giving the video a thumbs up, maybe sharing it with your friends. But regardless, I really appreciate you spending some time with me and putting your trust in Trusty Huckster. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way. Hey, I hope I can abide by your area codes, and I'm bound to wander down that endless road. Give me a good deal on something I can use. Make me an offer that I just can't refuse. When that sunrise in the morning and there's nothing there to do, will probably be the last time I see you. Woo-hoo! I hope I can abide by your area code, and I'm bound to wander down that endless road. Well, if I had a dime for every time I felt this way, I'd have $1 million and a couple bucks in change. Sure was nice to know you. Oh, maybe I'll catch you on the New York train. Or maybe I'll never see your face again.